Hello, everyone. My name is Janice Liebenbach, and I am a member of Cincinnati Opera Center Stage Board Associates. We are a dynamic group of young professionals committed to introducing opera to new audiences right here in Greater Cincinnati. Welcome, and thank you all for attending Cheers to Opera. Before we get underway, I want to give a big thank you to our sponsors, my employer ArtsWave, LPK, and UC Health for making this series possible. Thank you and cheers to our sponsors. Now, we have two very exciting guests for you today. Maestro, composer, singer, and pianist William Menefield is here to talk about his music and opera. And self-proclaimed restaurant gal, wine geek, dog lover, and foodie Emmy Friedrichs is standing by to shake things up and expanding our cocktail repertoire. Emmy is also the general manager of the Mercer OTR, which offers comfortable fine dining just a short walk from Music Hall. Now, if anyone has any questions at any time during our program, please post them in the comment section and we will try our very best to answer them live. With that, Emmy, whenever you're ready, shake it away.
Hi, thanks for joining us today. I was really excited to get to make a cocktail in support of the Cincinnati Opera. I started going to the opera as a very small child with my uncle, my great uncle actually, who thought it was important to expose all of us to the arts. So we would go to the opera and to the symphony and to the ballet. And I think that exposure at that young age definitely gave me a huge passion for music in general. And so what I'm making for you today is a sessionable cocktail. And so this would be a cocktail that could keep you through a long opera. So we're calling it the second intermission, those operas that you have to have 2 intermissions to get up and stretch your legs and see what you're doing there. So my cocktail, because of my great uncle, is going to use Uncle Val's botanical gin. So as far as gin goes, I'm not a huge juniper fan. This gin does a really good job of walking the line between a classic gin, which is juniper forward, and a lot of other botanicals. You'll get sage, you'll get lemon, you'll get lavender, you'll get cucumber. And so because it brings in all of those different notes, you can play around with what you're mixing with the gin. So for today, we're going to do a little bit of lime juice, which we have here. And if you're making stuff like this at home, make sure you date your lime juice. There's nothing worse than getting a cocktail and your juice is expired. And then we're going to add, because I like to add booze to booze. If you have a cocktail at the Mercer, you'll know that they are fairly booze forward. I like to add a little bit of wine to this. And so this is a great way for all of you that are stuck at home right now and you're trying not to drink the full bottle of wine every time you pop one. This is a great way to use up some of the wine that's left over, maybe stuck in the back of your refrigerator. So for this cocktail, I'm using Riesling. That way I don't have to add any kind of simple syrup or sugar to the cocktail in order to make it palatable. It's going to be just sweet enough to keep it interesting. And then we're going to finish it with some seltzer water and Pavon. And if this is not the most opera-worthy bottle of liquor you've ever seen, I don't know what is. Pavon is a muscat grape and orange blossom liqueur from France. It's named after the peacock dance. And the bottle is absolutely gorgeous, and it adds nuance and flavor. Now, the other thing I'm going to tell you about this kind of cocktail is I'm going to give you proportions of what I'm using. And then at home, you can plug and play. So one of the most famous cocktails out there is a Manhattan. Manhattan's built on a very strict formula, 2-1-2, the area code of Manhattan. So 2 ounces of bourbon, 1 ounce of vermouth, 2 dashes of bitters. And it works. And you can start to plug in things for vermouth and different styles of bitters to make that cocktail your own. Same thing goes for this one. I'm using Riesling. You can use any wine that you have in the fridge. It works great with rosé. I always have rosé left over. I'm using Pavon because I like the bottle and it's very light and almost acidic and effervescent on its own. But you can use a Grand Marnier float. If you like bitter, you can use Campari or Aperol. And I did choose Uncle Val's, but with the other ingredients we have going on in the cocktail, you can use whatever cheap gin you have on hand as well. So The other thing that makes this cocktail sessionable is the fact that we're going to top it with the soda water, which means that you can drink it poolside. Because I have made that mistake at a hotel before where I love a Manhattan or a really strong Boulevardier, and I go to drink, and I tend to drink quickly and I tend to speak quickly. And then the next thing I know, I've had 3 of them and I miss whatever the next attraction is. And I don't want to miss anything that's going on at the opera for sure. And when you hear Will speak about his passion for composing and how he got there, and you'll get to hear some of the music from Fierce, you'll know why I'm doing a cocktail that is going to get you in a great mood to listen to music, but not put you over the edge to be too sleepy. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Mercer, but if you're Cincinnati Opera fans, there's a good chance that you are. We are located just on the other side of Washington Park from Music Hall. We tend to see a lot of opera guests before they come in. And right now our restaurant is closed. We are kind of rebranding, doing a new menu so that when you come back and Music Hall's got things going on and the ensemble has things going on and Aronoff pops back up into our lives, you'll have a brand new experience ready for you in OTR, and we can't wait to see you. So now at home, and I have definitely figured this out from going out after the hard shutdown of quarantine, it is really important to still measure all of your ingredients. So I'm going to use just 1 ounce of the gin in this. You've got this little jigger. You can use tablespoons if you need to. 2 tablespoons typically equals 1 ounce. And then the bulk of our cocktail is going to be made up of your white wine. So I'm going to do 3 ounces of the white wine here. I will also tell you that if you have switched to wine on tap so that you're not wasting wine, this works really well with that as well. And then we're going to do a little bit of lime juice. And lime juice, I think, is the first place where you can plug and play with this cocktail to tailor it to your liking. It tends to be really, really sharp. You can soften it with lemon because we talked about Uncle Val's having lemon in the botanicals that they use to make the gin. I like lime because it does bring a stronger presence. But you could even use cranberry juice if you wanted, you know, kind of a more wintry flavor profile in there. So definitely make it your own and use whatever you have. I'm a big fan of, I have all these things, all these bottles that are sitting in the refrigerator. What do I have that's going to work in whether it's something I'm cooking or something I'm making for a cocktail? So we're going to do about 1/2 ounce of lime juice in here. And then we're going to shake it. And I'm sure that sounds very loud for all of you at home. So then you're going to need to find yourself a big tumbler. Because remember, it's sessionable. It's not overly boozy. We're going to dilute it so you can sip on it for a while. Take your seltzer water. Top that out there so it's nice and bubbly and refreshing. And then at the very, very top of this, just a little float. And this is where I'm not going to make you measure. Just a little float of Pavane or whatever the accent liqueur is that you're using. So this cocktail works pre-opera. It's light in color, so if you spill it on your dress like I always tend to, it's not going to show up. It is effervescent and light from the soda water, so you can drink it poolside if you are lucky enough to have a pool. If you are lucky enough to have a pool, you can probably get my contact information from Ricky and invite me over. I would love to sit at your pool. That would be great. But it hydrates and it gets you a little bit tipsy and it gets you in a really, really great mood to enjoy your experience for whatever it is. So that is what I have for you from the Mercer. We are calling it second intermission. The rule when you're making a cocktail at home is you can call it whatever you would like. So if you decide to make this and you come up with a more clever name for that, I am all ears. And you can send it to me, Emmy@themercerotr.com, and I'll put it on the menu if I like it. So that's about all I have for you guys today. So thanks.
Cheers, Emmy, and thank you for that delicious looking cocktail. I am having a gin and soda with a lime, but I cannot wait to try the true second intermission. And maybe I'll do that this weekend you know, invite me to that pool, everybody. Emmy and I would love to come over with the drinks and with the second intermission, that is. Again, Emmy, thank you so much to you. And thank you to the Mercer OTR, who has been a longtime supporter of the arts in our city. So thank you so much. And while everyone is enjoying their drinks, I hope everyone has a drink. I would like to introduce our second guest this evening. He wrote his first piece of music at age 8 after his mother removed all televisions from their home. His first professional concert was at age 12, debuting his jazz piano skills at local summer concert series, It's Commonly Jazz. At 18, he released his first album, Big Will Leaps In, and his second album, he released self-produced on his very own label, Will's Revenge, and that was released in 2005. He has performed as a soloist with the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra and Cincinnati Opera's Opera Goes to Church. His passion and dedication to his craft led him to earn a doctorate of musical arts in music composition from the University of Texas at Austin in 2011. And most recently, he participated on the creative team that produced music for an upcoming HBO pilot, and he served as musical director for Grammy and Tony Award winner Jennifer Holliday. Now, in May last year, his choral orchestral piece Prism, commissioned by Cincinnati's YPCC, premiered at Union Terminal, and I was actually at that concert and really loved it. And then again at Carnegie Hall in New York City. And currently he is composing the music for Fierce, a brand new opera commissioned by Cincinnati Opera, set to premiere in the summer of 2021. And since all of that is not enough, he will join the staff of the University of Iowa as assistant professor of jazz studies in the fall later this year. Everybody, please meet maestro, composer, singer, and pianist William Menefield. Will, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it is my genuine pleasure, Janice. Thank you for having me. How's everybody doing out there in the virtual world? Can't wait. Let's get into it. Let's get it, Janice.
Okay. Well, we have a couple of questions for Will, and then maybe he will play a little music for us later in the program. But first question. So, William, clearly your resume, have you as an artist extraordinaire. How did you first fall in love with music?
Well, both of my parents are musicians. So I grew up in a musical family. My mother, she played violin and also was a singer as well. And she was a music teacher for many years. So we always had musical instruments around the house. My dad also played saxophone. So, I just grew up with music. So ever since I can remember, there was always something around that I was, banging on, playing on, something. Piano was always in the house. I had a toy saxophone I would mess with and try to look like my dad. So I fell in love with music from the time I was born.
Wow, that's terrific. Thank you for that, Will. I just want to remind everyone who's tuning in that if they have a question for you, they can post them in the comment section, and then we will try to get them after these few questions that I have prepared for you. So thank you. Wow, I did not grow up with any music, but I am a true enjoyer of music and all arts here in Cincinnati. So thank you so much. So if not your parents, who inspired you in your career, early on in your career? And then tell us also who inspires you now.
So I've been pretty blessed. I've had some, different mentors and just being in Cincinnati in general, because of my dad, he was on the jazz scene, and I got to grow up around some of Cincinnati's finest jazz musicians. People like Jim Anderson, who's an amazing bassist. Melvin Broach is one of my mentors. I grew so much because of Melvin Broach. He's an amazing jazz drummer. Mike Wade, another one of my jazz mentors. He put me in his band at a young age, and he's amazing trumpeter there. And then there were other amazing players, Irvin Stuckey, a pianist, Roland Ashby, Charlie Wilson, also a pianist, Art Gore. There was a great guitar player by the name of Billy McCullough. I mean, the list just goes on and on. And I was a kid, and I would grow up listening to all these jazz legends of Cincinnati, just heavy hitters. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that I was listening to some of these guys that played all around the world. And it was just such a rich experience and such a unique experience to grow up as a child listening to these living legends. But I also had an amazing cello teacher who's still in the CSO right now, Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. His name is Norman Johns. I played cello for 12 years, and he was such a great influence, on me. And I still own the cello. I don't play. But I'm gonna pick it back up one of these days. But he was very important for me. There's a pianist there that I studied with by the name of Elaine Leon Wolf. She was a professor at CCM, and she was such an amazing teacher for me. And that was actually more recently in the last few years. So I've just been really, really blessed to have some amazing influences. From Cincinnati area and beyond, even when I went to CCM and even at the University of Texas, just a really, really amazing musical experiences and mentors and people that inspire me.
Okay. Well, you threw out some big names there from the Cincinnati jazz stage. And is that It's Commonly Jazz, which I'm a little bit familiar with? I know Carolyn Wallace, and I know that the concert series is in its 35th year this year. Right. Is that part of, where those mentors come from?
Oh, absolutely. Back in the 90s, my dad actually used to produce the It's Commonly Jazz series. So I got to see more of that up close and personal back then when I was a kid. And I got to meet some just, amazing jazz icons during that time and see some of the greats perform there. I saw Eddie Harris perform there. I saw McCoy Tyner perform there. John Blake, who's an amazing jazz violinist. I got to see him perform there. And then, we had a lot of local greats that would perform either with their bands or with, some of the more internationally known acts. So that was a very important part of my life, even as a kid. And then when I got older and I started to perform, I've actually performed on It's Commonly Jazz a few times. And it's just been an amazing experience, both as an audience member and as a performer.
Got it. Now, you said as you got older, you were 8 when you first performed on It's Commonly Jazz, right?
Well, I was 12 when I first played on It's Commonly Jazz. I was 8 when I wrote my first.
That's right.
Yeah.
You were 12. Got it. Thank you. So you talk about, your jazz background, and yes, your first professional show was a jazz concert. How does your experience in jazz affect how you write classical music?
That's a great question. A lot of people actually talk to me about that because, when I perform, I'm mostly playing jazz, at the piano. But as I said, I did play cello for a long time, and, I sang in choirs, and, my degrees are actually in classical composition. But my experiences with jazz, and not even just with jazz, with a bunch of different genres, I whether it's hip hop or gospel or R&B, I have so many different experiences with music. So when I'm writing, what most people might consider to be classical or art music, all of these different genres tend to show up because they're so much a part of who I am. And I don't try so much to write just one specific genre when I'm sitting down and composing. I just really want to hear and feel and think about the audience, think about what I would feel like that if I was sitting out in the audience. And so I would imagine like me sitting out there, like, I don't want to just hear another, Beethoven piece. I don't want to just hear another, Mozart or
Sure.
Schoenberg, or whoever. I would want to hear whoever this composer is. And, in my case, that means opening myself up to all of the different genres that I have experienced either as a performer or as a listener. And so just all of this stuff just starts coming out, in one big mashup a lot of times. So, but jazz specifically, to be more specific to your question, because it's so important to me, you'll definitely hear those influences in my compositional style.
Got it. Thank you. So you have this huge jazz background. You write classical music. When and how in your career did your love affair with the opera begin?
That's a good question. So a great story about that, at least it's great to me. I was a kid. My mom was actually going to CCM, University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music, for those who don't know what CCM means. And my mom was in an opera. Actually, my brother was in the opera too. He was an extra, and that opera was the Magic Flute, Mozart's The Magic Flute, and they did this really like far out interpretation of it, right? So it was really really interesting. And my mom was in the chorus, and she was in the chorus as an astronaut. And I remember as a kid, I was sitting in the audience and I'm looking around because there's all these chorus members on stage in their astronaut costumes, and I'm just like looking around, and then I see my mom, and so my face lights up, and I see, and she's really singing too, man. Like she's going in, and I will never forget that. I'll never forget that. Now, of course, at the time, I didn't imagine that I would have the honor and privilege of being commissioned to compose an opera for the Cincinnati Opera. But that was the first time I ever remember being excited about opera. And, of course, being a native Cincinnatian and having an amazing opera company like the Cincinnati Opera, the second oldest opera company in the United States. I had many opportunities to go there and just see all the amazing productions there. And, just made me love opera even more.
Okay, well, yes, a lot of amazing productions with Cincinnati Opera.
Absolutely.
And yes, second oldest opera in the country. But can you tell us what year that was, Will? Where you saw your mother? It doesn't have to be exact.
But it was 1980 something. I mean,
Okay.
maybe 85-ish. I'm not exactly sure, but it was 80 something.
That's a good approximate for me. So thank you for that. So, here are some tougher questions because we want to get in on you writing opera and, what your process is when you do write an opera. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Well, this is my first opera. So everything about my process of writing specifically opera was even new to me. So I had to figure out my process as we, began this journey of composing this new piece. And it started in a very interesting way. Our wonderful librettist, her name is Sheila Williams. It's an amazing author, and now she's an amazing librettist because this is her first opera as well. But she actually sat down and met with 10 young ladies in the Cincinnati area. This is a collaboration between the Cincinnati Opera, the Music Resource Center, which is a summer and after school program for music for young people in Cincinnati, and Wordplay, which is a summer and after school program for writing, poetry, short stories, things of that nature. And so there were young ladies from both of these programs that she sat down with, had conversations with, and out of their conversations, she developed this libretto, and then she gave it to me. And it's my job to read this libretto and decide what it's supposed to sound like musically. And, so that involved, of course, me sitting down, really studying the libretto, trying to get to know the plot, trying to get to know the characters, and just understand what's happening with them in their own kind of idiosyncrasies, but also what's happening with the storyline overall, and just spend some time listening, in my mind, and just trying to be sensitive to whatever I feel like the libretto is telling me. So I didn't go into it with any kind of preconceived notions about what I would compose. I didn't have any compositional ideas before I actually read the libretto, because I wanted to be as pure and organic as possible. I wanted the words to tell me what I was hearing first before I started to sit down at the piano and improvise and explore. And that was actually the next step, was to literally put the libretto on the piano and just start to play, to listen and play before I put any notes on the page. And then, little by little, depending on what section I'm working on, sometimes I would bounce around here and there. Music would start to emerge. In fact, for this process, the way that we started, and when it came time for me to write music, I said, you know what, I think it would be best to start by composing arias for each of the four main characters. So out of her conversations with the young ladies in Cincinnati, Sheila developed four main characters: Rumor, Vesta, Naomi, and Morgan. And we were trying to think about what would be the best way for me to approach, composition. I'm like, one of the great things about opera is that signature aria, right? Like that everybody, that moment, in the middle of the opera where the star just, spotlight shines down on them, and it's like everything goes silent, and all we're doing is just focusing on, this amazing aria. We all know it's coming. All these opera heads, we've seen this, 10 million times, but it doesn't matter. We're here now. Like that moment, like as soon as summertime is about to get some important best or something like that, everybody's just like, okay, this is it. They know they've seen it. They've probably seen it 12 times, and they're still
Yes.
waiting for it. You know what I mean? So I said, I want each one of the characters to have a signature aria. So rather than starting at the beginning of the script, we found the places where we felt like, okay, this is an aria, this is an aria, this is an aria, this is an aria. And I composed an aria for each of the four main characters. And then the rest of the opera came out of these four arias. So they each, at the beginning of the process, each main character already had a musical identity. And then the rest of the plot, from a musical perspective, could develop from the musical identity that we had from composing these arias first.
Wow. So you started with giving each of the four characters a voice, and then developed the rest.
And I think it would be good for us to maybe hear some clips from this. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. That would be fantastic.
Since we're talking about our our characters now, and we're talking about the music now, let's go ahead and do that now. So we actually went ahead and chose 3 different clips. The first one that we're going to do is from Rumor's character. Rumor is Rumor is deep. Rumor Rumor is going through some things, right? Like her loved one committed suicide, and she is having, as anyone would, just a horrible time dealing with this, sudden loss. And um, she is, just in her space, just really trying to figure out how to deal with this, because for her it came out of nowhere. And that is what her aria is about. Her aria is actually, we gave it the title "Where Are You?" because it just, because their relationship was so strong, it just felt like she was still here. So the little clip that we'll play is from the beginning of Rumor's aria.
Got it. Thank you.
I'm so confused. I don't know how to feel now. Where why don't you speak to me? Are you like an angel? Are you like a ghost? Are you everywhere?
Wow. That was beautiful.
Thank you, Janice. Yeah, it's I gotta tell you, when I when I was writing that, when I had to hold back the tears myself, and then that was actually from the workshop that we did in October, and man, I just to hear it, actually be sung for the first time, I was in there crying in my own stuff. I was it was crazy. It was crazy, but I wish we had more time to, even let people hear. But we just want to tease you a little bit, because we want you to come and see it next summer. So, so this next clip is from the character Naomi. Naomi is the it girl. She's super popular. She's fabulous. She's wonderful. Everybody loves Naomi. She's gorgeous and talented, and she knows it, and everybody else knows it too. Um, she has her own, challenges as well, of, just kind of dealing with the struggles of knowing that she's beautiful and she's talented and all this stuff, but she kind of feels like at the same time she can't show any other side of her. She has to kind of hide behind, these masks of popularity and makeup and beauty and all these different things. But at the beginning of Naomi's scene, there it's just all about her being amazing, and she's singing about how great she is, and then like the little chorus of students that are following her around are also singing about how great she is, and they're just she's just like, yeah, I'm great, and they're like, yeah, you are great, you know what I mean? So that's how this scene starts off, and I wanted to share this because I wanted to not only show a different character, but I also wanted to show a little bit of the chorus, as well as because this is about young girls. This is about adolescent girls. So we wanted the music to be diverse. We wanted certain things that sounded more reminiscent of what people would consider to be traditional opera style, and even the little clip of Rumor's aria that we heard was kind of more in that tradition. But this has a little more of an R&B kind of flavor to it, this little section here. So this is from Naomi's opening scene.
and I can see.
Definitely got the R&B feel there.
You got
Yes.
the fun little vibe. And again,
Yes.
I wish I could, play a little bit more, but it's just, I just picture, Naomi and walking down the hallway or something with this little group of people. Like it's like my music theater vibes coming out. Cause I graduated from School for Creative and Performing Arts with high school in Cincinnati. So I did a lot of music theater stuff too. So
Yes.
I have all of that super music theater nerd stuff that'll come out at any
Well,
moment.
I am very familiar with the School for Creative and Performing Arts. And it's not just a high school, because my 6-year-old daughter just finished kindergarten there. So
Oh, wow.
she will be going back in the fall, first grade at the same school. She's a little bit of a performer herself, if I may say so. So yes, great school. And I had no idea that's where you graduated from.
That's right.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So we have one more clip. And this is Vesta. Vesta is the youngest of our 4 main characters, and she's super smart, but also quirky. And she's kind of going through some challenges at home, and because of these challenges at home, she likes to try to figure out how to just drift off into her own world. And in her make-believe world, she is, or at least wants to be, like an otter. And the reason why is because otters to her are just this perfect combination of being, that they can operate on land, they can operate in water, and they romp, and they live on couches, and so they're just like this amazing creature to her. And for her, because of these challenges she's experiencing at home, she just will often imagine herself drifting away into this fantasy land of being an otter. So her main aria is actually called "I Wish I Was an Otter," and it's this little waltz, and it just kind of, she just talks about how she wants to drift off and escape from these problems and be in the world of the otter. So we'll play a little bit of that now.
I believe in make-believe. I know it's dumb, but I do. It's the only way that I can get through. I believe in make-believe. I don't believe in anything at all. I'd build a kingdom of wishes, sit on a couch made of dreams, where nightmares don't exist, and yelling is against the law. And no one can make me feel small.
Wow, that is amazing. And if that doesn't get anybody excited about a new opera that will premiere right here in Cincinnati, I don't know what will. And if I may, just for the benefit of everybody listening in, I would like to just share that Fierce, which will premiere next summer with the Cincinnati Opera, tells the stories inspired by the lives of 4 Cincinnati area teenage girls who helped create it. And of course, you, Will Menefield, and novelist and now librettist Sheila Williams joined forces to present this new work. in collaboration with community partners, as you mentioned, Will, Wordplay Cincy, and the Music Resource Center right here in Cincinnati. So thank you for giving us a little bit of a glimpse of yours and your work, and for sharing how you go about, writing an opera. So I have a few more questions, and I'm getting some really good questions from the folk who are listening in. But I want to ask you, which one of your projects was the most demanding to finish? Out of all the work you have done, which one of your projects was the most demanding to finish?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so that's I'm actually going to give two answers to that. The first was my dissertation from when I was earning my doctorate from the University of Texas. Writing a dissertation is not easy, and for many reasons. But for me, after I finished my comps, I just felt like I was done with school. So I really had to like dig in to make myself. And and the project was, we had to write a large scale piece for symphony orchestra, and then we had to analyze our own piece. So when you kind of have that little bit in high school we called it senioritis, but when you're ready to be done and you still have to make yourself write this really intense piece, it's tough. So that was tough. But more recently, it's definitely this opera. Composing opera is no joke. It's no joke, because it's the whole idea of collaborating with a person. I mean, at least in my case, Sheila and I met because of this project. So now it's like we're getting to know each other. Then she sends me this libretto. I have to try to do this libretto justice, write a whole piano vocal score. And this is a short opera. This is only 75 minutes. This isn't one of those, 2 intermission operas that last, for 3.5 or 4 hours. This is a 1-act, opera. But 75 minutes of music is a lot of music from start to finish. And then the process after the piano vocal score, which we do for the purposes of workshopping it, and of course you have to have that for rehearsals as well. And if you ever want to have like some really tiny performances, or to make things excerptable, it's good to have a solid piano part. That's how you start. But then after that, you have to orchestrate it for the ensemble. Now, but because this is a chamber opera, it's not for the full orchestra. We have an ensemble that includes 12 players, but it's still, 12 players is a lot of players to orchestrate and arrange the music for. And that's where you really get into creating all the moves and so on and so forth. So without question, this opera, because and even after that, it's not done, because shout out to our dramaturg and stage director, D. Lynn Myers, who is the director and head honcho at the Ensemble Theater there in Cincinnati. She's amazing, because then it's her job to make it look good on stage and tell people where to stand and get with the costume and all that kind. An opera is a whole production. So by far, it is this opera.
Okay, so I guess the dissertation was worth it because Dr. Menefield just rolls off the tongue. But I'm going to throw in a question here from one of our listeners or who's tuning in. It's Kiara Levy-Smith. She wanted to know, do you anticipate writing more opera music?
Hi, Miss Q. I know who that is. How you doing, Miss Q? Do I anticipate? Absolutely. As soon as somebody commissions me to do so, because writing an opera is something that is so, it's such a huge undertaking. I'm not going to lie. You need to get paid for that, because for real, you're going to spend some time. It is it is a part of your life. You just had a newborn baby, and you got to raise that baby and make that baby talk and eat and do everything. Like, that's opera. It becomes such a part of it is your family, that opera. So but yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do it again. I'd love to do it again.
Opera music. I have a few more questions, and then there are some really good questions coming from the listeners. So I know that you've said that you've had some mentors who really helped you and that you listened to, but can you share some of the advice that you were offered as you were coming through this process from jazz musician to composer?
So Melvin Broach, who again is an amazing drummer in Cincinnati, from Cincinnati, and still there in Cincinnati, he told me, or taught me rather, about the importance of listening and about the importance of space. And that's something that I think about to this day, because when we talk about music, we think about notes. We think about singers singing notes and instruments playing notes, either individually or collectively. But one of the things we don't think so much about is the importance of the space in between those notes, the silence, and how to appreciate the moments when you're not playing, or the moments when, as a composer, you really need to let the music breathe, to give even, or put rather, even more emphasis on a specific note or phrase, or a section of the music. It's so important. It's so important to have the right amount of space. And I'm so grateful to Melvin for teaching me about that, because as a young player and as a young composer, you're just so excited and you just want to try to play everything you can fill up every spot, and write everything that you think is cool. But one of the most amazing things that you can do sometimes is just breathe, just leave some space. So that was one of the greatest pieces of advice I ever got. And I also am reminded of something that Mr. Johns, my cello teacher, taught me, and he would say this all the time in my lessons. He would just say, "Hey man, it's sweat equity. It's sweat equity. You got to put in that sweat equity." And of course, what he was talking about is just, listen, you're working hard now, and even though you haven't achieved whatever goal, you have to understand that the only way to get to whatever it is you're trying to get to is to put in the work now. And I can still hear his voice saying, "Hey man, it's that sweat equity, man. You just gotta put in that sweat equity." And I'm grateful to both of them and many others, great teachers, professors, and mentors that I've had over the years who've helped me.
Okay, got it. So I prepared a question, but then I saw Brittany Elizabeth's question for you from the listeners. And, you said sweat equity and, breathe. And she wanted to ask, and here I quote, "Dr. Menefield, for composers who are interested in writing a larger work, like a symphony or even an opera, what advice would you give? Where should they start as far as musical ideas and instrument assignments?"
Well, Brittany is actually a great composer herself. So let me go ahead and put that out there. But I will say this to answer your question. As far as, I'll start with the instrument assignments. It really just depends on either what it is that you want to do. If you decide that you want to write a large scale orchestral piece, for a symphony orchestra, then there are some pretty standard combinations of instruments for a symphony orchestra, with having full string sections and a couple of flutes, a couple of oboes, a couple of bassoons, so on and so forth, French horns, trumpets, things of that nature. So really just kind of depending on what either you want to do with that regard or in that regard, or what you're commissioned to do, because if somebody is paying you, then they're probably, going to have at least some kind of say in the instruments and so on and so forth. But I think the more important aspect of this question is the musical ideas, because when you have to deal with this large ensemble, sometimes it can be kind of daunting to think about, okay, who's going to play what? What am I supposed to start? Well, the idea, the process of gathering ideas should still be the same, in my opinion, when you're first getting started. Be as open and as improvisational as you are when you're writing anything else. Sit at the piano and just start to play. Don't even think about the instruments right away. Open yourself up to whatever possibilities. If you haven't already, before you start composing, familiarize yourself with these instruments. Make sure you know what they do well, how they sound. Familiarize yourself with the color combinations. You can do this by studying different pieces of different, masterpieces of the past. Get a score, listening being the most important thing. Score study should happen after you listen a few times, in my opinion. But once you familiarize yourself with all these different sounds, then you start the process of coming up with your ideas. While you're coming up with your ideas, while you're improvising at the piano, you'll start to hear, oh, that would sound good in the flutes. And then you can take a little note as you start to kind of sketch your score out, but score it out in something small, 2 to 4 staves. And so that way you're not overwhelmed by this massive ensemble, and you're taking it step by step. And it's important to stay in that improvisation stage for longer. One of my professors, when I was in grad school, told me this. And he just said, stay in that improvisation stage longer. What are you in a rush for to try to hurry up and get something down on the page? Remember, the page is it's a guide. It's information to the player. So you'll get that down when it's time. The page isn't the music itself. That's just the symbols of what the music is. You gotta hear it. You gotta feel it. And then you start to write it down, and that begins the process of crafting and communication.
Got it. Wow. I don't play an instrument, but that's some pretty good advice. So I have 3 more questions from the listeners that I want to pose. The first one sounds like it's coming from a family member of yours. Her name is Jewel Menefield. And she wanted to know if there is anyone out there that you would like to collaborate with.
Oh, absolutely. That list is long. And yes, that is my aunt. How you doing, Auntie Jewel? Thanks for tuning in. I would love to collab. I mean, when I grew up, Stevie Wonder was already one of my all-time favorite artists. So you get me on the same stage with Stevie Wonder, I would not know what to do with myself. And that, the list doesn't stop there. I mean, there's a list, there's a list, but Stevie's number one on that list, I would say, just because of how I felt about him and his music, from the time I was a kid. So rather than going through the whole list, I'll just leave it there.
Okay, got it. A question from Sashta Tabor. She's asking, have you been able to work professionally with any of your family members?
How you doing, Ms. Tabor? And yes, I played with my dad on several gigs. And I also, my aunt, Camille Saba Smith, she's an amazing vocalist. Got to work with her. And of course, I worked with my mom. My mom had us working with her from the time, we were kids, and she was a music teacher. So we were the closers. I had to play cello for graduations and piano for the choir and, and all kinds of stuff. So absolutely.
Got it. I'm going to throw in one of my questions, and then we'll let everyone know where they can find you. But my last question to you is, if you could perform anywhere in the world, or if your music could be performed anywhere in the world, where would that be?
Wow, that is a great question. If you would have asked me this 5 years ago, I probably would have said Carnegie Hall, but that happened last year in May.
Yes.
But my music, if I've actually performed at this place, and that place is Music Hall in Cincinnati, but I've never performed there as a soloist. And I know that I could choose any place in the world, but I love Music Hall. I love the art scene in my hometown of Cincinnati. The acoustics in Music Hall are so incredible. It's such a beautiful space. And to perform there as a featured soloist would literally be a dream come true for me, because it's the stage that, I grew up. I mean, I grew up with it. I mean, it's my hall, it's my orchestra, so it's like, and it's gonna happen one day. I'm patient, but absolutely.
I assure you, the right people are listening right now. And yes, I'm a little biased. Music Hall is a terrific space for operas, for symphony. It's just a beautiful, beautiful space, and the acoustics are amazing. And the renovation that happened a couple years ago just improved everything. And we are so fortunate to have Music Hall here for us here in Cincinnati. So those were all the prepared questions we had, but people want to know, how do we find you and where can they buy your music?
Well, I do have a website, WilliamMenefield.com. I'm going to be very candid with everybody because of all of this that's been going on in 2020. My website has just been sitting there and, needs to be updated. But, you can follow me there. And then, of course, on social media and so on and so forth. And, as we, kind of crawl our way back into some sense of normalcy in the world, there'll be more opportunities to see me perform. And then I'll get back to recording and things of that nature. So just keep your eyes open. I'm really looking forward to getting up to Iowa City and starting my new position at the University of Iowa. So, maybe you can come up and have some corn with me in Iowa.
We'll wait for your soloist on Music Hall stage. How about that? Well, thank you, Will Menefield, for your time and sitting down with us and giving us a little bit of insight into your world and your process, and being from Cincinnati. Thank you for the pride that you still portray. We absolutely love our city here in Cincinnati and everything that the art scene is offering its residents. So thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. And then to everyone who tuned in, thank you for your time this evening. We hope you enjoyed our program. For details about future programming, please visit our Facebook page, Cincinnati Opera Center Stage. And then finally, if anyone would like to help us cover the cost of the ongoing center stage programming, there's a donation link in the comment section, or if you would prefer, you are welcome to visit cincinnatiopera.org to make a donation. And now Will is going to play a few notes for us on his piano. Thank you, Will.
Well, this is cocktail hour, so I'll close this out with a little cocktail piano. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Peace and love, everybody.